Anytime we talk about implanting microchips into the human brain, a lot of people instantly worry about what could go wrong. What if the software crashes? What if there's a bug? How could this potentially not go according to plan and that is going to derail me or send me into a neurological nightmare? But what I find equally as scary and potentially even more dangerous is what if things go right? We talk a lot about smartphones, smartwatches, and computers, and to a certain extent, all of this technology we start using on a daily basis that really gets attached to us, and to the point where we become infinitely more useless and less knowledgeable when we are detached from our technology. You have to kind of acknowledge that we are approaching that cyborg reality closer than we may think. The interaction between us and our technology is just somewhat limited right now to our thumbs and our fingers and interacting with touchscreens or keyboards and mice, and that is how we interact with the rest of the web, and that's how we access so much information. And in today's world, it's kind of what keeps us connected. It's what keeps us working, even to the point of internet now becoming a basic utility, something just as crucial as electricity or running water. This is why I don't see it as too far-fetched that within the next few decades there's going to be ways of integrating this technology into our minds in a sense that the latency between interacting and searching things online becomes far less, as it is no longer limited to just our fingers and our eyes. Now, Neuralink is an Elon Musk startup company that is in its infancy right now. It hasn't been around for too long, and they are prototyping primarily on animals right now, but if you've been keeping up with their most recent presentation, you know that there's quite a few breakthroughs they've been able to find in tapping into the neurological side of reading and writing data. I don't think this technology is something that's going to creep up on us very quickly, and I don't think it's something that's just going to one day get announced and now everybody's installing it in their head. Like, there's not a very simple way to implement surgery and sell that to millions and millions of people. And of course, in today's day and age, I, like many of you, would probably not even sign up if it was available today. I know tons of people out there too that would not be willing to put microchips in their brain because they don't know the risks and they don't know truly how bad the technology could go. And because of all this uncertainty and because of all these things we don't know about the technology, that would steer plenty of people away from it, which is why Neuralink is primarily focusing on people with neurological diseases first, whether it be Parkinson's, whether it be dementia, or Tesla short selling. They want to go towards people that have issues with the mind and try to make their lives better. Neurological disorders are incredibly common, especially as you get older, which is probably why Elon Musk is wanting to focus on this company a tad more regularly than before, because he's worried about his brain not working as well. And essentially, if this technology can allow him to continue to do his work and not face neurological issues, he can get closer to his goal of one day reaching Mars. But what he talks about quite regularly is how once they figure out how to solve a lot of neurological disorders, they eventually want to start heightening the human mind and start creating use cases for Neuralink outside of just fixing the brain and trying to make it back to its original state. Instead, now heightening its capability so that not only would you be able to look stuff up online just with a thought, but you would actually be so integrated into the internet that you just start to know certain things. It's so back of your mind, it's so seamless that instead of having to look up certain questions or look up certain tutorials to understand certain things, you just know it, because your brain can access different archives of the internet just as easily as you can access prior memories of your childhood or prior memories of the past year or so. That thought process is what really gets me worried and scared about how Neuralink could technically change so much of today's day and age, especially when it comes to learning and practice, which is how we spend so much of our time these days, is like training for different programs or studying to become qualified for a certain position. I'm well aware that not everybody's gonna be on board with putting microchips in their brain. Like I said, I wouldn't be either at this point, but what does concern me is that in the future, more and more people are going to get comfortable with it, and those people are going to be able to bypass so many stages in life that we have to go through right now. Think of how many years people spend studying advanced mathematics or advanced language arts, or even just studying multiple different languages to speak. If you could implant a chip into your mind that allowed you to bypass those years and years of learning, and now you could start speaking in another language just as smoothly as you can look up translations on Google Translate, now people who are willing to put a Neuralink into their head are going to be significantly ahead of those who aren't. Now you can imagine in the future, if certain companies or certain jobs are looking for qualified people, they might start to think those who have Neuralinks in their head are going to be more capable and more willing to access any part of the internet they need to learn a certain task and to learn a certain skill without any training, without years of experience, and yet be able to master it because their cognitive ability has been raised exponentially by an order of magnitude. Then we can start looking at the possibility of people who are not willing to implement microchips in their brain being at a significant disadvantage to those who are. And at that point, more and more people, I think, will start to become comfortable with it once there is more studies and more proven statistics of how safe it can be or how integrated the surgery process can be, which are both things Neuralink seems to be focusing very, very clearly on, making sure that implementing the microchip does not look obnoxious, it doesn't become obvious, you shouldn't be able to tell that someone has a Neuralink on when they're wearing it, and the surgical process should be as simple and as painless as possible, not too complicated, and something you could do within an hour. It's this type of radical technology that makes me wonder how useful smartwatches and smartphones are going to be in the future if so much of what we use them for today could be replaced by cognitive thought. How many of us are actually going to care about notches in bezels in the future at that point? And I would compare it very similarly to the innovation of flight, which to this day, my grandmother, bless her heart, is still not really comfortable with getting on a plane because she was on one when she was real little and it terrified her, and she was not really willing to get up on an airliner after that, despite the studies and statistics proving that, hey, powered flight is actually safer than driving around in a car. She grew up in a very different time and saw very different things than what we've grown up with, and that's why she's hesitant to ever get on a plane again. And I think we could be that generation for Neuralink. Kids who grew up with this technology being commonplace are probably going to feel very comfortable with implementing it because they might see the stats and they might see the success rate and realize, hey, hundreds of thousands of people are doing this and it doesn't seem to be hurting them, and they're able to learn things a whole lot faster than people who don't get these chips. Therefore, I'm comfortable with installing it because I want to be up to date and I don't want to be at a severe disadvantage of everybody else around me who's comfortable with getting the chip. But we're going to be the older generations, the parents, the grandparents out there that say, I don't know, I didn't grow up with this type of tech, so I still think it's unproven and I still think it's dangerous. And I'm not saying this to distance myself from that demographic because I'm in it too. I mean, I've had opinions change in the past, but as of right now, I would be too worried about microchips changing the way I act, or in a potential sense, I don't really know the boundaries of what this technology can stop me from doing. And what would really concern me about Neuralink technology is if it can influence my opinions on things, which is something I don't think I would ever be comfortable with losing. If a computer in my brain was able to influence my thought to the extent that it could change my opinion on certain subjects or change the way I think about certain subjects outside of my own subconscious control, that's when I would not be okay with it, which is why I'm really hoping that as Neuralink becomes more commonplace and eventually finds its way into everyday consumers, my hope is that they have some type of battery pack that powers the device that is very easy to snap off, as simple as MagSafe, if you will. We still, in my opinion, need to have a way to disconnect from that advantage in that technology where we can utilize it when we need to in the workforce or when we want to learn a different language or learn a new skill, and leave it connected and plugged in during those parts. But when you want to have those more philosophical debates in your head head, or you're having a one-on-one conversation with someone and you don't want the potential of someone listening in or someone being connected or changing the way you think, changing your opinion on a certain subject, it needs to be very, very simple to pull that battery off and make sure that the device is not powered anymore. Knowing how smartphones used to have removable batteries and now they don't makes me think that in the long-term future, they'll eventually get to the point where you can't remove the battery or charge it very easily, which is why the success of microchips being implanted in our minds scares me a lot more than it going wrong, which at the end of the day, if it does go wrong, I feel like it'll be fairly easy to prevent the rollout, and even if there's something that goes barely wrong that causes panic, it will instantly prevent millions of people from ever wanting to install it, and the mass rollout of the technology will be severely stunted in that case. So that's why Neuralink technology going right, I think, can change so much of the world more so than it going wrong. Though I guess at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, what really is right in this situation? Is it advancing humanity's capabilities so that we can spend less time trying to learn and master certain technologies that we could eventually learn and master within a matter of minutes instead of years? Or is it staying true to ourselves and knowing that all of our accomplishments were achieved with our actual biological matter and not our cyborg silicon counterparts? Let me know what you guys think is right in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and don't expect these types of videos to happen every day. Take care.